What's up, everybody? My name is Matt, and welcome to another week of Dingers and Stingers, the only podcast that I do alone. As you guys can see, we do not have Dallas and Drew with us this week, and that is because we are filming and it is Thanksgiving week. Dallas is out visiting his family, and me and Drew decided that we wanted to kind of shake things up and try something new. So he's going to take the solo portion of the baseball episode, kind of shrink it down and monologue that. And I'm going to try and monologue and have this discussion for football and do the football episode this week. So we're trying something new. We'll see how it goes. Let us know if you love it. Let us know if you hate it. But regardless, happy Thanksgiving to you all. We're going to dive right in. So to start, we're going to discuss, we're going to go around the league in 20 seconds. Dallas does this, and he's dialed on it every week. I'm going to try and do it as quickly and efficiently as he does. So we'll do winners and losers. This week's winners, start the clock, are Texans, Chiefs, Bears, Patriots, Ravens, Packers, Seahawks, Lions, Jaguars, Browns, Falcons, Cowboys, Rams, 49ers. And the losers are Bills, Colts, Steelers, Bengals, Jets, Vikings, Giants, Titans, Cardinals, Raiders, Saints, Eagles, Buccaneers, and Panthers. So this was a kind of crazy week in the NFL. We saw the Eagles give up a 21-point lead. They looked like they were going to absolutely kill the Cowboys, and the Cowboys come out and they put up 24 unanswered, and they end up pulling out the win to get themselves to 500. The Eagles lose first seed to the Rams. So there were some pretty substantial, moves in the NFL this week. Shador Sanders made his first start. We'll get into that in a little bit. But we want to start off, Dallas still loved him. Dallas still made some rundowns for us, gave us some topics that we could discuss, gave us some stuff to kind of bounce off of. So the first thing that he has listed here is the quarterback carousel keeps on turning, right? So the first note we have is JJ McCarthy. He is in concussion protocol, and he will not start in week 13. It looks like it is going to be Max Brosmer, for all of those in the, 20-man fantasy leagues, you'll know Max Brosmer. But it looks like he's going to get his first start against the Seahawks. We've seen the phrase soft benching come up a few times this season. We originally thought we saw it with JJ McCarthy when they just kept rolling out Carson Wentz. And the question has begun to arise again. Is this essentially a soft benching of JJ McCarthy? Is it because he's actually in concussion protocol and they called him out this early? Or is it simply because they want to try and give him a second to breathe, right? We saw this with Bryce Young last year, and we saw some success with that, right? You can bench a guy effectively for a few weeks, let him kind of catch his breath, let him get more acclimated. This is essentially JJ McCarthy's rookie season, at least physically, obviously not mentally. But yeah, the question was, have the Vikings given up on JJ McCarthy? I think no, because obviously we're only about half a season into his rookie season. So I don't think that they've given up on him in any way, but I definitely think that this is one of those like reality checks where they had Kirk Cousins, win 13 games or whatever it was, throwing for 4,000 yards. They had Sam win like 14, 15 games, and he was throwing for 4,000 yards, got MVP votes. And they let both of those guys walk so that they could take their shot on a guy like JJ McCarthy, first round pick, defending national champion, all the accolades. And this is the risk that you run when you're a team, right? Like, you can have this perfectly set up team, and sometimes you feel like, oh man, we're just an elite quarterback away from kind of getting over the hump. And that may be true. Absolutely the case for some teams, i.e. look at the Chiefs in like 2015, 2016. Alex Smith was phenomenal. They bring in Patrick Mahomes, and he just takes it to that next level. But then you look at cases like this where, last year the Vikings only lost to two teams. They lost to the Lions twice and the Rams twice, including the wild card. And they end up moving on from Sam, and they give it to they give the season to or they give the keys to the franchise really to JJ McCarthy. And halfway through this year, it kind of seems like, Vikings are on the outside looking in. They might not even make playoffs. The Bears are first place in their division. So this was definitely a season when the division was, effectively wide open. And so it calls, I guess it's a case of caution for the rest of the league, right? These young guys can be tantalizing. Getting them under cost control can be tantalizing. There's so much temptation to the new, young, shiny thing. And sometimes you just have to see, like what actually is going to be best for the team. I think that's really what it comes down to, is figuring out, like what is going to be best long term. Is it going to be the guy who is this shiny toy and has all the tools and all the possibilities, or is it going to be the guy who's already performed well in your system and may not be the best quarterback, may not be the highest performer, but can get the job done to an extent that your team wins games and makes playoffs? Because at the end of the day, right, maybe they lost faith because of the way that the Vikings lost in the playoffs. They made the playoffs, and they were a very good team, and their quarterback got MVP votes. Like, it's just one of those things where I would caution teams going forward to be careful of wanting to go young too quickly. The other question is, what is best case scenario for the Vikings? I mean, best case scenario is this is just a concussion protocol, and JJ McCarthy is not actually being benched, and that he comes back from concussion feeling rested, feeling ready to go. It can start to look like the JJ McCarthy that led Michigan to a national championship, right? You want a guy who's confident. You want a guy who doesn't turn the ball over, probably uses his legs a bit more. I know that was a huge part of his game back in college. And I think a lot of fans would appreciate seeing a little bit more of that at this point, just because, he's not really getting much done through the air. So why not create in other ways, especially if you have the means to? So we'll see. The Vikings, it's looking tough as far as playoff hopes. I'll say that it's looking tough for them. But we'll move on. Another team on the outside looking in, but getting much better news than the Vikings this week is the Cincinnati Bengals. It's looking like Joe Burrow will be not just back, but potentially starting this week on their Thanksgiving game. So we might be getting Joe Cool back for Thanksgiving. What does this mean? The Cincinnati offense has kind of come alive over the last few weeks under Joe Burrow. They've gone from last in rushing to one of the most efficient running games in the league over the last few weeks. Obviously, Jamar was suspended this past week, but their pass game looked good. T. Higgins goes down this past game. I don't know, I don't know what the situation was with that. I don't know how bad it was. We hope he's back, because, it's a division that also feels wide open. The Ravens had their massive, pitfall of the start of a season. The Steelers look just routinely average. The Browns suck. We'll get to them. And it looks like a division that's begging a team like the Bengals to surge in this late part of the season and somehow steal it. Which I think would just be cool. Like, especially with all the turmoil that's happened in Cincinnati over the last 2-3 off seasons, it feels like. It'd be cool to see them kind of have that late season surge and really put together a season. I'm still pulling for the Ravens. They were my Super Bowl pick this year, but at the same time, like, I don't know, man. I just don't like the Steelers at all. I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I would love to see a team like the Bengals just kind of put it on them and take back the division, honestly. So I don't think it's too late for him to make a difference. That was the question. Is it too late for Joe Burrow? I don't. Only because of the division they play in, right? If this was a division that had a first place team with 8 or 9 wins by this point, maybe it's too late. But the fact of the matter is their best team is the Steelers, who I believe have 7, 6. Like, they're not that good of a first place team, all things considered. So I definitely think that they are vulnerable, especially with this Aaron Rodgers injury. Mason Rudolph, I don't like Aaron Rodgers. Mason Rudolph is bad Like, that's a bad option to have behind Aaron Rodgers. So they are definitely vulnerable. So moving on, maybe the actual biggest news of the week, Shador Sanders had his first start. Dion, made his whole spiel about, I don't want to be a distraction, but, I also want to see my son. And it's like, dog, it's your kid. Go see your kid start his first NFL game. The high road, glory to be. I despise that personality that he takes on sometimes, because I'm like, dude, you're a showman. You are a distraction. You built your career on being a distraction, but you backed it up. That's supposed to be the whole thing, right? Richard Sherman, you look at that, you look at Randy Moss, you look at these guys who all they do is talk, and they're distractions, and you can put all these labels on them. They backed it up. They always backed it up. Same goes for primetime. And so, yeah, dude, Shador Sanders, his first week. And granted, it's not against a good team. The Raiders are a bad team. We can talk about them a different week. I don't want to waste time on them that much. But the Raiders are not a good test per se. And at the same time, in anybody's first start, you want to see them come out and make plays. And, I believe I saw in the game, the Browns had the longest streak in terms of like games without a 50-yard pass or something like that. And Shador Sanders broke that almost immediately on a rollout play where he just bombed it down the field. I forget who it was to, maybe like Isaiah Bond or something. But yeah, I mean, he gave an element to this team that they really hadn't had since like Jameis Winston was playing, and even previous to that, it seems. Dylan Gabriel, I like Dylan Gabriel, but he really just has a limited skill set and a limited, ceiling for the team and for his offense, just because of his stature, because of his arm strength, etc. And so, yeah, I think that this is one of those situations where, Shedeur did a really good job. He did what he needed to do to beat a team they should have beaten. But you can't take that away from him. Like, at the end of the day, you can't take any game for granted in the NFL, right? We always say it on this podcast, but like, a dub is a dub is a dub. You can't take it for granted when your team can go out there and actually win a football game. And he did that. He actually got the Browns a win. Do I think that they're going to just like go on this tear at the end of the season? No. Do I think Shador Sanders is going to all of a sudden skyrocket and be a rookie of the year, front runner? No. I don't think, we go that far. But what I do think is, does this change the way the Browns look at their offseason? Does this change the way that they look at their draft, at their scouting process? Absolutely. Right? I mean, if you determine throughout the second half of the season, like, hey, we might have something here. Draft capital, throw it out the window. Doesn't matter. He's in the NFL. He's an NFL caliber player. Does he have it? Right? Does he have the means to elevate this team and make them a team that, can compete on a week-to-week basis and can compete in that division? If they really see that in him, then all of a sudden, all this draft capital they have, all of this, cap space that they have, can all be allocated to supporting him and to improving his offensive line, giving him more weapons, continuing to, find somebody to be across from Myles Garrett. Because at this point, the dude is just Superman every single year. And they've tried so many times to bring in replacements for that other side of the D line. And it just seems like every time they bring in somebody, they kind of fizzle out, or they don't work out, or they underperform. So all this capital, all this cap space, they need to be able to use it wisely. So whether that be in finding Shador's replacement, whether that be in, building out the supporting cast around him, I think that this move has already shifted the trajectory of the franchise for the better, if you're a Browns fan. But I'm not going to say by how much. I don't know that I believe that Shedeur is some franchise-altering guy, but it at least gives you a glimmer of hope, right? A little light at the end of the tunnel, because the Browns have been bad, man. The Browns have been a bad franchise for a long time. Um, and it's due to a lot of careless mistakes at the quarterback position, and a lot of impatience at the quarterback position. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how these next few games go, and as he plays better competition. But hopefully he can lean on that run game with Quinshon. Um, that seems to be the calling card of the Browns the last few years, and really under Kevin Stefanski. So I say just keep leaning on that and let the young guy run. But we'll flip sides of the field really quick, and then we'll move on from this past week. But the big news, secondary to that, out of that game, was at the end of the game, the Raiders, devastated, embarrassed, whatever, have fired Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator, who led, Ohio State to like 40 points a game last year in a national championship. Comes up with the Raiders, with Pete Carroll, and just can't seem to get it going. So Dallas asks, where did it all go wrong for Chip Kelly in Las Vegas? To be honest, I think where it all went wrong was that they were a bad team and they drafted like they were a good one. They went out and drafted, Ashton Genty. And could he end up still being great for them? Absolutely. I believe Ashton Genty is a great player. But at the end of the day, this was a team who had a below average offensive line last year. They had below average quarterback play last year. They didn't really have any playmakers on the outside. I mean, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers obviously was amazing, but, they can't foresee this. But the injury this year really hurt them. But there are so many other things happening there. They had a porous defense, both in the run and the pass. Basically, it's just Max Crosby on that side. And, we've seen with Myles Garrett, pass rusher can only do so much to change a winning culture. But they brought in Ashton Genty. They go out and they trade for Geno Smith and give him all this money. An old Geno Smith, mind you. And it all just kind of results in those two guys have absolutely highlighted the weaknesses of that Raiders roster. The offensive line looks terrible. And they have guys who I believe were playing out of position. They had, it's like Jackson Powers Johnson or something like that. He's supposed to be a center. He was from Oregon a couple of years back. And they're playing him at guard, and he looks terrible at guard. But then in his film where he's played center at the NFL level, he looks legit, and he looks like he can do it. He ends up getting hurt while playing guard, so now he's out. That gets rid of that whole thing. And, there was a stat that came out a few months back where it was like Ashton Genty had more yards after contact than he had yards rushed. That means that he had to run past contact behind the line of scrimmage more than the amount of yards he ran, which is just mind-boggling to think about. That not only could a guy as explosive as him not really get anything going, but at the same time, he was so routinely getting tackled and hit in the backfield that even when he was getting explosive, he might end up taking, 10 yards after contact. But if that run is only 6 yards, it's just, there's so much, take one step forward, 2 steps back kind of stuff. And it hamstrings an offense and a team's ability to compete on a week-to-week basis. So what went wrong? I think really just at the end of the day, like I said, the roster was bad, and they acted like it was good. They acted like it was 1 or 2 pieces away. The follow-up to this is, would you keep Geno Smith and / or Pete Carroll, or just cut bait and start all over? It's hard to say. They've paid Geno Smith a lot of money, and do I think Geno Smith is the only issue? Not a chance. Do I think that he has elevated the team around him? Not a chance. Pete Carroll, love that man to death, but he seems dated at this point. He seemed dated at the end of his time with Seattle, and I think that's why they kind of wanted to transition and move on from him. And it's just, it looks to be that way now, where, the schemes that worked for him one time don't seem to be relevant in today's NFL. And it just feels like the type of team he wants to build isn't the team that succeeds at the NFL level right now. Um, and so I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it depends on what you think your options are out there. I mean, is Lane Kiffin willing to come over? Is Bill Belichick willing to come over? Does Tom Brady want to step out of the broadcasting booth and take over coaching? What are the options out there? Do you want to go for a Joe Brady and be on the young hot coordinator kind of vibe? Do you want to go and get a disgruntled guy like a Robert Saleh, someone who's kind of just like that hard nosed build the culture type of guy? There's 1,000 ways you can go with that, and each of those guys is going to have a different philosophy on what they want to do with Geno Smith. And so if it was up to me, I'm probably cutting ties with them. The one thing I'll always love about the Rams, we know when to cut ties with people. We have tons of dead money on Cooper Kupp this year and on a couple guys. And we did the same thing before with, Todd Gurley and a few others. And so it's just one of those things. If you know when to cut ties or when you're just willing to make a mistake, it prevents you from letting that mistake linger and affect you even longer. And yeah, technically, you're not giving them another chance. And, sometimes guys deserve a second chance. And that's all fine and dandy, right? Like, I do believe in that. And at the same time, like, if you have your expectations set at being competitive sooner than later, then make moves with that mentality, right? Stop just kind of waiting around, hoping guys turn it around. Especially in this scenario where, it's not like it's some rookie. This is an older veteran quarterback at this point. And, there's not much more development that's going to happen. You kind of know who he is, and it's a matter of, does he fit the scheme? Does the scheme bring out the best parts of him? And right now, it seems like the answer is no. So, Raiders, good luck to you. Can't stand you, but good luck to you. And Pete, I hope you retire. Truly, genuinely. But yeah, so we'll move on. I'm going to talk about the Rams a little bit. I'll briefly mention the Broncos and Seahawks as well. But the Rams played the Buccaneers. And, I thought that this was going to be a close game. I was like, man, after, such a tight game against Seattle, and, are we going to have that kind of like fatigue that happens the week after rivalry games? And you know what? Turns out, nope, not really. We came out and just jumped on them early. We caused turnovers early. We had the pick six. And we just came out and attacked them. Like, it just seemed like everything they had planned, we somehow knew or had, a counter for it prepared. It was a McVay masterclass. Like, genuinely, this was a McVay masterclass. The offense looked explosive. The defense looked dominant. And finally, we started getting the sacks. I am heartbroken. I hope that he is okay. At the end of the half, Baker Mayfield went to throw a Hail Mary and came down awkwardly on his arm, his non-throwing arm, but an arm and shoulder area that he had previously injured. I hope there's nothing serious there, because the NFL is better when Baker's a part of it. And so I really do hope he comes back, but that obviously did happen as well. But yeah, the Rams, man, we took over first seed in the NFC. So as of right now, we would have the bye week, and all playoff games would come through SoFi and LA. I think that's awesome. I love that. Some people are a little iffy on the bye week stuff. Personally, I think if you come from the athlete perspective, you always want rest. No matter what, you always want the rest. You'll always take the bye week. And I'd rather take the risk on being a little rusty than on being injured or fatigued or, what have you. And also, just, you don't have to take the chance on getting eliminated by a hot team in the wild card, which the Rams seem to be that hot team every year in the wild card. So it'd be nice to avoid a team like us this year. But yeah, things are going well in LA. So Yeah, we will move on. The Seahawks played they played the Titans, and what looks like it was going to be a very like lopsided, handedly won game ended up being a bit closer than I think a lot of people expected or wanted. It ended, I believe, 30-24. Um, but that was also a little bit garbage time, so take it with a grain of salt. But the offense had its moments where it looked a little out of sync, but then it kind of got it going. Jason had another monster game. Sam had some beautiful deep balls. Running game was all over the place. Kenneth Walker looked really good. I don't understand why they can't just commit to him at the goal line as well. But that's a topic for Dallas to answer. But yeah, Seattle looked really good, and they are right there. I would still heavily consider them the second best team in the NFC as of right now. We'll see how that second meeting goes between us. At the end of the day, they've proven they are not to be taken lightly. They are good defense. And then JSN and Sam just have that connection. And as long as they can keep it going, that offense is going to score enough points to stay dangerous. So, they're looking good up there too. And then the Broncos are on a bye week. So, they say you can't be disappointed, right? They can't be disappointed. The Chiefs won. That's probably a little disappointing, but I mean, where the Colts lost, so the Broncos really take a hold of that first seed. Chargers, I believe, lost to the Jaguars, I believe, by like big boy points. And then the Raiders also got beat. So I mean, honestly, great weekend for Denver. Not much else to say about it, but great week for Denver. But yeah, so looking at last week's predictions, Drew predicted that Myles Garrett was going to sack Geno Smith 4 times, but that the Raiders would beat the Browns by double digits. Did Myles Garrett have 4 sacks? I feel like he low-key might have. Let me look this up really quick. But they did not win, obviously. They got beat by the... they beat the Raiders, so the Raiders did not beat them by double digits. So, we even if this is correct, we can't really call it fully correct. Okay, he was credited with 3 sacks against the Raiders. So, Drew, you were really, truly so close. But 3 sacks, not 4, and the Raiders did not beat the Browns. So, we're going to call that a loss for Drew this week. And then mine was that Baker and Matthew Stafford would lead the Rams game to over 800 yards of offense. I can double check the offensive yardage totals from that game. I don't believe I hit it, but also Baker went out at halftime and he didn't have many yards before halftime. But there's still a little bit of that. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Okay, no, they ended with 526, so really not even close. I don't think Baker's going for 300 in the second half, so we'll call it an L for me too. So, tough week on the predictions for old Matt and Drew here. But yeah. Man, what else? Let me look up just some NFL stuff that's been going on. Trevon Moehrig, the safety from Panthers, I saw he got suspended for a game for fighting with Juwan Jennings, which is, kind of whatever. The Bills signed Brandon Cooks. The Chiefs signed Damian Pierce. Broncos extended their center, so good for them. The Rams, we extended our middle linebacker, Nate Landman, so shout out the Land Shark. Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, not a ton of news this week aside from just some games that went haywire, a couple good games that went to overtime, and a couple standing shakeups, but not a ton of like newsworthy stuff this week, which is totally fine. yeah, looking through this, I mean, Lamar's back. He didn't look very good though, but hopefully that picks up for him. Um, but yeah, I mean, everything looks good in the NFL landscape this week. So I'll wrap it up then. I'll go ahead and give you guys my dingers and stingers for the week. My dinger is absolutely going to be that we signed Nate Landman to an extension. It was 3 years, 22.5 million, 15 guaranteed. He becomes the 26th highest paid linebacker in the NFL. He plays much closer to a top 10 linebacker. Um, just another gift from the Atlanta Falcons to the Rams organization. He is the best linebacker the Rams have had since James Laurinaitis. I stand by that. And I'm excited to see him in horns for the next 3 years. And, also to finish out this one, it's nice when you just kind of have a rock in the middle of the defense there. That's been a position that we've been in question for a while, especially since we traded Ernest Jones. So I'm happy to have kind of that staple guy there. It brings a lot of comfort. And then as far as the stinger goes, I'll give a baseball stinger. The Padres rounded out their coaching staff finally. We've signed a few minor league contracts, but nothing substantial's happened yet for us. But we rounded out our guys. We got our bench coach and we got our hitting coach, and neither were guys that I necessarily believe like were going to come in and be this big impact. We definitely leaned into the like ex-player and very recent ex-player vibe. We got Steven Souza, I don't know how to say his name, but like Steven Souza Jr. And I forget even who our bench coach is, but their interviews, they seem to say good things. But I'm just concerned that at the end of the day, if it's a little too buddy in the locker room, then no one's going to be able to push Manny and Fernando to kind of those heights that we expect from them. And in such a competitive, landscape right now that is the NL West and just baseball at the top as a whole, we need those guys to perform. Like that really was the downfall of our postseason. Our stars didn't perform when we needed them most, and we need it. We need them to come through. So yeah, that's my stinger for the week. But that's it. Not bad. About 30 minutes, about half an hour. So, anyways, it was great to see you guys. Great to talk to you guys about football, just to get to chat. If you guys liked this format, please let us know. Leave a comment. We read every comment that comes in, whether you want it or not, we read them. And yeah, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Mine will be coming up soon. Drew's will be coming out, and we'll get back to normal scheduling next week. But for now, we want to just kind of test this out. Let us know if there's any topics you guys want us to talk about. But if not, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. You guys can follow us on Instagram, here on YouTube, or on Spotify, for you audio listeners. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Deuces.